ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back as the RaceRoom Ranked Championship 2023 Season 1 sees the MX-5s take to the second half of their championship. We're back in the Czech Republic here at Brno for round 3 of this fantastic championship that has boasted so much competitiveness. It's myself, Zach Sweeney, alongside me here in the commentary booth is Lewis McGlade. And Lewis, it must be said that the Czech Republic must, they must be all right with their circuit making, considering we've got 2 of them here on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quality circuit, let's be honest. It's one that's wide open, it's fast and flowing, it's quick, it's tricky. Kind of like the counter opposite to what we had at Autodrome Most with that tight and technical sequence, especially going around the start of the circuit. So as much as this season's kind of leaned towards Luciano Vitfort thus far, I think we might see a bit of a change tonight.
We might well indeed. Of course, as Lewis said, we went to Autodrome Most 3 weeks ago. We went to Road America. We're here in Brno in 3 weeks' time. We'll round off this season at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. A very short and snappy season, only 4 rounds in length for the MX-5 Cup. And of course, we have got the KTM and the GT3 Pro Series who they alternate each week as well. So we've never been able to live without some good old RaceRoom Ranked Championship stuff as well. Here is the schedule for this evening of racing. As per usual, it's 3 15-minute races. Race 1 is determined. The grid order is determined by the qualification that is taking part now. Race 2 and 3, however, Lewis, a top 10 reverse grid, just to add a little spice into the mix.
And it does add spice, almost certainly. But it is a circuit that you can overtake at, so I don't suspect anyone will be too worried about those top 10 reverse. There's a bit of a look at the circuit, 5.4 kilometres, only 12 corners in that 5.4k, including a couple of chicanes coming up the hill. Short braking zones for those, particularly the second one, mostly based on that final section, mostly based on you kind of coming up and then over the crest, and it's actually a fast left-hander through there. But that sort of middle sequence, you might be able to get some work done. If not, it's all about being brave in the first corner and potentially in the penultimate chicane.
It's a very much a momentum-based circuit, it must be said. A lot of medium speed corners, quite high. I mean, these MX-5s are quite small and agile cars, which means when you take them to a nice long and wide circuit, they take the corners a little bit faster than they usually do. Rear-wheel drive, 184 brake horsepower, and weighing just over a ton. Means these MX-5 cars, Lewis, they're very nippy, aren't they? They're nice and agile, and they're very raceable, which is exactly what we like to see. Yeah,
especially when you've got 32 of them, you basically want a big old pack race, and that's essentially what is going on. It's the ultimate club car, and that's what makes the racing in it so spectacular, so interesting, and so much fun. To be honest, I think that's what this really is. Of all of the three sort of championships we do here for the RaceRoom Ranked Championship, this one is all about just going out and having a good time.
Yeah, just go for those moves, chuck it down the inside, use the car that you've got underneath you. It's a very learnable car, I suppose. It's very driver friendly. It doesn't take a lot to get into it and be quick, which means that we have got is a long list of people who are very interested and very willing to jump into this car and just go out there and have a bit of fun, which is always what we like to see amongst the community. Here are the list of names, of course, some standout ones. Enzo Filipao, Luciano Vitfort are 2 standout people in the championship. Mariusz Sabtit as well, the Poleman who has taken a race victory. He did that a few weeks ago in Road America. Philip Dreys as well up there for needracing.com. So many big names in this championship, Lewis, and in all fairness, quite familiar ones that we're used to when it comes to the top end of RaceRoom esports.
Yeah, certainly. So 3 drivers, by the way, this round for needracing.com. Of course, Philip Dreys. There is also Christian Mikel up there as well, to be joined by Turkka Häkkinen as well, who did do the previous round of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship at the GT3 Pro Series at Road America, where filling in basically for Philip Dreys wasn't there for that round. It might have been Christian Mikel, one of them was missing either way, and Turkka Häkkinen was filling in. Now there is the 3 of them out on circuit, and of course all 3 of them have gone out in the same livery, in the same number, in the same car, which just makes them impossible to
We've got 4 as well, because I can see Mitchy Giesler as well down in P18.
Oh, there's a few in that livery. There's 7 in total in that livery.
Wow, that's impressive.
And annoying.
That's going to be fun for us, isn't it? We're going to have a lovely time trying to pick them apart, especially if they're close, which they probably are going to be because of the massive slipstream that we've got here at Brno.
Yes, certainly. There is one, though, which is Bartolos, that's driving around in a JC Lewis Mazda. So they win my vote. Presently in 17th. Qualifying, by the way, is underway. And they're presently in 17th. So clearly my namesake on the car is not doing any assistance. There they are. Look at it. It says Lewis on the side of it.
Oh, it says Lewis on the side of it. Boom. It should
does.
also add 2-ton Viso Simi award winner.
Thank you.
Just in sub font underneath, just to really bring the Lewis McGlade name. And it should also have the number 78 on the side as well, just to really
Should do.
just to get onto it, but it doesn't because you're not that relevant, unfortunately. So
No. What was your racing number?
I don't have one really. The only time I did
exactly.
proper karting, the only time I did proper karting, it was 90. So we'll go with that. It's not because there was 2 rental cars available. One was 90, one was 95. I wanted 95 because of Lightning McQueen, but they didn't have that one ready, so I got 90.
Also, 1995 was the best year. Anyway, we should probably focus on this qualifying session. So in the final stages, Enzo Filipao, by the way, is going fast from the first sector.
He is, and he's looking to improve upon his time at the moment. Only 89 thousandths of a second separate the Frenchman from the German of Christian Mikel on pole position. And it must be said, a 2-minute 20 lap, give or take, obviously a couple of tenths. And the top 3, Lewis, are separated by less than a tenth of a second. And that says everything you need to know about the competitiveness of this grid. An incredibly tight run for pole. And well, now we're into the final stages. It's do or die. At the moment, though, Dre's not quite on the pace for that first sector.
Yeah, and those that are like half a second to a second off will almost certainly be able to hang on around here. The most important thing to note about this qualifying session is that it is open. Everyone's out on circuit at the same time, which means realistically to get pole position, you need your teammate. You need someone to help you out. You need someone's slipstream, and that's what can cause some problems through the qualifying session. Of course, Luciano Vitt, their championship leader, in 4th position, so he's it kind of. In this kind of race, if I've qualified somewhere inside the top 10, I'm happy, right? That's kind of like that's it. That's job done from qualifying. You don't need pole position around here, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, because we've already touched on that. It's a nice, very, very picturesque glide, but probably not very quick of a way to run around the circuit, particularly as you've got that uphill climb into the braking zone towards the tail end of the circuit. Very short braking zone. Does go purple to the middle sector, Philip Drees, so quickest of anyone through the second sector, but unfortunately maybe needing to find a little bit more. He is also onto his final lap, Lewis, because RaceRoom doesn't let you finish the lap. As soon as the timer takes 0, that's it, you're done. So Philip Drees really needed to nail this final lap.
Yeah, into the final complex, using a little bit of the curb there on the right-hand side just to turn in. Maybe caught the rear out a car out just a little too much. Currently sitting around 900ths of a second off of the pole, improving in the second sector, but losing out a little bit in the first. Will come across the line. Nice. Does improve the lap time and makes a needracing.com front row.
Does indeed, of course, at Road America in qualifying, it was all a Hungarian front row, and in this one, it's an all German and an all needracing.com front row. So definitely looking good on the pace. Christian Mikel and Philip Drees both looking pretty good in terms of the championship standings as well. Philip Drees taking a race victory, and same too. I believe Christian Mikel at some point in this championship as well. We have had 6 different races, Lewis, and 6 different winners over the course of Autodrome Most and Road America, and that sounds pretty good for a championship.
Yeah, part of me's not that shocked in the sense of like this car is so openly raceable that it's like a lot of people can win, especially around a circuit like this. Yeah, genuinely, pretty much anyone on the grid can win if they're in the right position at the right time. Matej Mikiewicz, by the way, is improving. Go on, mate.
Boom. Love it.
It is Matej. It's fine.
It is, yeah. Although we are British, so we're allowed to say it because we've coined the term mate Mikiewicz is what we'll go with. At the moment, just under 6 tenths off the pole position time of Christian Mikel. He's got about 25 seconds left in qualifying, and a little bit of a poor run maybe through the final chicane. The run to the line, he has gone green to the first couple of sectors, which does mean he has improved, but you can see still down on the pole time. Slight improvement. Not enough to see him anywhere up, and not able to top Marius Abdir on the 3rd row of the field. Christian Mikel, though, able to take pole position, narrowly beating his teammate Philip Drees in 2nd. Enzo Filipao and Cravey 3 and 4. Championship leader Luciano Vitt rounds off the top 5, and Marius Abdir will join him on row 3. Matej Mikiewicz in P7, Turka Hakkinen, Davin Nemchek and Shores Oysa round off the top 10. We've got an absolutely monstrous grid of around about 32 cars, Lewis, which is fantastic to see. And also, with the top 20 really not separated by all that much at all. Just over a second between pole and 20th place. I think we're in for a good 15 minutes.
Oh, I think we're in for a good evening. Like I say, 3 15-minute races to come. The order not separated by too much means that it is going to be close, it is going to be tight, it is going to be hard fought as well. I expect drama, particularly on the opening lap, less so into T1, more so into turn 3 and 4, that sort of section. The left-right as you start to really drop down the hill. that's where I think we'll see some drama, a little bit of awkwardness, particularly from the mid-pack. But from the front, if you're around with your teammate, Christian Michael, Philip Dryce, things should be pretty simple. I think Turka Hakkinen, who's qualified in 8th position, might be a little bit determined to cut through the field fairly early to go and assist his teammates at the front. The likes of Enzo Filipao, the likes of Luciano Vitfort, who are up there for the championship. I think for them, for the first race, it needs to be no major risk.
Absolutely, and for those outside the top 10, I suppose their main aim is to just beat Shaw's Oyster for 10th place, because that will really kickstart their evening, get themselves into that pole position for race 2, and then maybe see them be able to take a race win or even a podium.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, who knows? With these, like I say, with these kind of rounds, I think there is this whole kind of thing of like going Ferrari at Monza qualifying on it, i.e. trying to plan too much and then messing it up constantly and catastrophically. Don't try and plan, just focus on what you're doing, just race it through, tick it off one lap at a time. And by the way, I think they're about ready to get onto the grid, and we can see who's going to win the first race of the evening.
We will do indeed. Of course, 15 minutes on the clock. Very quickly, Lewis, who do you think is coming out on top?
Philip Dryce.
Ooh, okay.
As in this first race.
Okay, yeah, cool. No, yeah, fair enough. Because obviously, for those that don't know, the points championships are decided. Basically, each round in of itself is a mini championship, race 1, 2, and 3. The combined total, then the points are distributed in the championship order, essentially, of the mini championship that they've got. So if a driver comes out on 90 points, they then get the full 50 points awarded for the championship win. We're about to get ourselves underway for race number 1. 15 minutes on the clock. It's Mikel and Dre's the front row. Filipao and Cravey just in behind. Round 3 of the RaceRoom ranked MX-5 Championship is underway here in Brno, and it's a good start from the front row from the 2 Germans, and I don't think really under any pressure the pole sitter. Philip Dre's happy to sit in tow with his teammate as they bow their way in towards turn 1 for the first time. Cravey trying to make a bit of a move on Luciano Vitfort. The Dutchman, though, able to get a pretty good start and up into 4th.
Yeah, decent start from Turka Hakkinen as well. Mariusz Zabdir being hung out to dry a little bit through T1. They'll come through that fast kink and then out through turn 2. There is a look through the mid-pack. I think you've got Devin Nemchek and Mariusz Zabdir. They're going side by side just ahead. The focus here is on Peter Daniel as they'll start this drop down the hill towards turn 3. It's where I think there might be a little bit of drama in the background. There's already been someone dropped off the rear end of the field, and that is John Rhodes.
Yeah, unfortunately for Rose, not quite been able to get off to the best of starts. Now 8 seconds off the back of Bartolos, the Hungarian, also down there in P32. At the front, though, look at that contact in the background. Not entirely sure who that is. That might be the fight for 8th. Shaw's Oyster and David Nemchek may be coming to blows. Sebastian Ray tries to get himself into the mix. The Dutchman trying to go the long way round the 33 in that white MX-5, trying to get himself up into 8th place. Mariusz Zabdir into the mix as well. It's absolute carnage as we round off the first half of lap 1.
Yeah, it was one of the Woods cars.
Oh! Cutting across the grass there. Who's that? Sebastian Ray nearly rounding himself into nearly 5 cars there, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, Sebastian Ray's a quality driver, but pushing it a little bit too hard there, going through that awkward section. It's the bit where I don't think we're actually seeing too much movement on the day of racing. Carlos Guedes there going out a little bit wide. This is a look at David Nemchek on the rear end of Peter Daniel. Rising up the hill, it's Obratao trying to make the move as they go side by side towards that end kind of run on the back stretch.
Yep, and the main overtaking opportunity is really to make a move. David Nemchek goes for the move to the inside. Obratao trying to go the long way round, but they're long corners here at Brno, which means the outside line not really too favourable. Now you climb up the hill into the braking zone to one of the final chicanes, and because it's uphill, you're assisted by gravity in the slowing down, so you're not really on the brakes for very long. Christian Michael, Philip Dre still lead the way. Enzo Filipao, though, looking very daunting at rounding off the podium. Luciano Vitfort as well with a good start into 4th. Philip Dre's trying to go for the race lead, maybe showing his intentions that he's not too interested in the team game.
I think he'll play the team game. I think he will. I'm sure if there is the opportunity for him to get through, I'm sure he will go for a little bit of an attack. And when I say the team game, what I mean by that is being a bit patient and not going for a silly move. He's going to go for a move. Philip Dryce is going to try and attack for the race lead at some point. Whilst this is the Racing Rank Championship. We're not battling for $1 million here. So I think there will be an overtake coming from Philip Dryce. Enzo Filipao might try and take advantage of all of this, though. A bit of a mistake there going through the exit of the first corner. It's such a long corner. Is T1. There's a couple of those around here that just keep going and going and going.
They do indeed, which does make it very difficult to go to the outside. Dre's not really sure where to put the car, maybe looking for a half-hearted move on his teammate, maybe just trying to cover off Enzo Filipao, who at the moment is trying to use that momentum of the poor line from the German to catapult himself up. A poor run though from the Frenchman himself, potentially sees the championship leader of Luciano Vitfort pull alongside. He goes to the left-hand side of the circuit. They run their way in towards turn number 5. Of course, it's the outside line for the Dutchman, and we've said that doesn't usually work, but he's got the speed, he's got the agility, and he's got to do it all over again as they run their way through turn 6.
Yeah, but you have the inside for the next corner here through the left-hander, but you can see how fast the corners are. The outside line actually kind of works because you carry so much speed and so much momentum around them. You've got to be worried, though. If you're going to battle like that, you've seen how much time Luciano Vitfort and Enzo Filipao have actually lost. This is looking backwards from the Dutchman, but ahead, the gap's almost around it's close to a second. It's nothing too major, but if Enzo Filipao is to attack immediately after this, if he's to attack coming down here, attack going into the final 2 chicanes, that will actually allow Philip Dries and Christian Michael to pull away from the entire contingent behind. You've got to know how and when to attack. It's not just about attacking 24/7, even in a 15-minute sprint race.
You still have to think long game, essentially. Again, even though it's not a very long time ahead to think about, you still want to position yourself in the best way possible for that final lap dash. And on a circuit so heavily set with a precedent of slipstream and momentum, as soon as you disrupt that by having a bit of a battle, it is very much danger zone. So Mikel and Dre's need to maximise this opportunity. If Vitfort and Filipao continue to battle, also maybe Cravey and Mikovic getting themselves into the mix also. If the top 2 can break away from this train, it essentially is fair game between the 2 of them, because it's going to be so hard to reclose that gap if it bridges too far.
Yeah, most of the gaps are looking okay. The bigger one in that sort of top contingent is between Marius Zabdir and Turka Hakkinen. There's a defensive line in the background. I believe that might be, I was going to say it's Obratao, but I'm not 100% sure on it. Defending from Jose Luis Gamero. I think it actually might be the case. You've also got Polgar and Nemchek. It actually would have been Rafita in the background that was trying to defend. So there's a little bit of that going down to term, a little bit of nervousness for the contingent, and there is even a spinner in the background. That will be David Hack.
Oh, look for the move as well. Enzo Filipao going to the inside of Luciano Vitfort, gets covered off by the Dutchman, who's very aggressive in his defence. He does not like moves to be taken from him very easily. Couple of swaps as well. Ray and Louis Gamero swapping places for 12th. A very big off, unfortunately, and a very easy track to go for a spin as well. While it is very wide, Lewis, there's not really much in the way of runoff.
No, certainly not. You're grass, gravel, wall, that's it, basically. And the speed you kind of carry around here, the likelihood is if you do go off, you will probably take a visit to some of the famous Brno barriers. But at the top, I think the top 2 are really starting to clear away. Obviously, those 2 playing the team game, making sure that they're not fighting right now. Not quite broken the slipstream of Luciano Vitfort, but they looked really fast in qualifying. Enzo Filipao was, of course, the 3rd fastest during that qualifying session. Philip Cravey was the 4th, but not really showing that speed right now. Obviously, you are just going to sit in the slipstream, you are just going to play it cool. Turka Hakkinen, by the way, has actually been gapped by this grouping. Matej Mikovic also managing to keep up with the grouping, pulling out to around about 1.5 seconds over the fin.
Yeah, which is a good gap to have, of course, because again, with it being so heavily reliant on slipstream and things, but with how big that front fight is, I mean, from Mikel down to Mikovic is only 2 seconds. If they continue to battle, Turka Hakkinen needs to be able to be the one to lead the charge and get themselves back onto the back of that 6-car train. Just look at it. One small battle between that train and Hakkinen could very easily find his way back into contention.
Certainly so. Well, as they come round to what will effectively be almost halfway through this race, we've only done 3 laps of racing. I think it should be 7. So there should be an extra lap. It's going to be quite tight though with how they are on the numbers, but it should be a 7-lap race. So plenty of action still left to go in this one. As you can see, a couple of slip and slides in the background. That was Carlos Guedes going out a little bit wide. This is Mikovic on the back of Villa Cravey. The first turn, the only way you can make a move into the first turn is if you're brave to dive it down the inside, and that's only if there's been some form of issue for the other car coming out of the final corner. Here's a bit of a bump draft though. Villa Cravey receiving it from Mikovic. They need it now. If you're going to work together around here, you need to try and close up on those groupings ahead.
Yeah, but Philip Gravy not doing himself a lot of favours in all fairness. Mikovic trying to go to the long way round, trying to work with the fin, but he's not doing himself any favours because he's making mistakes, he's slowing himself down, and surely it's going to get to a point where Mikiewicz just says, nah mate, this is mine, I'm going for it. Also in the background, Peter Daniel trying to find his way past the Dutchman of Shaw's Oyster for P9, but themselves trying to close the gap to Marius Sabte in 8th, and then by extension Hakkinen, and maybe, just maybe, if they can hope that train in front starts the battle, but you can't always count on that. And well, now we're into the second half of the race. You really start having to think, Lewis, about your own personal gain in this race, because this is really where positions start to matter more.
Yeah, Sabte has done a really good job to close back in on Turka Hakkinen, obviously gapping Oyster and Peter Daniel in the process, but the gap's not too large. We're back to having no one inside the top 10, really, with a gap over a second. Villa Cravey, it's hovering around that sort of 1.1 second margin now. It's actually just gone out to over a second, but now as they come through this section, it goes down below a second. So it's kind of ebbing and flowing between a lot of them, but you can see that there is quite a large gap between Enzo Filipao and Villa Cravey. So I'd say at the moment, with 3 laps left to go in this race, it's almost certainly a 4-car battle for the race lead. I think the 5th and beyond is a little bit of a stretch too far.
Yeah, but not impossible. But yeah, we don't want to push any false narratives and say, oh my god, we're going to have a 10-car fight for the lead or anything like that. I think Cravey doesn't quite have the pace to compete, and as soon as he lost that slipstream, it was just more losses upon more losses. You can now see he is ever so slightly starting to overdrive the car, and Mikiewicz, yeah, not quite able to find a way through, or doesn't want to find a way through at the moment. Mikel, Drees, Wittver and Filipao, the top 4 in this race, and there we go. Drees forced to go defensive into turn number 1 as Luciano Wittver tries to go to the long way round. He's going to still try and hang the car all the way to the outside of turn 1. No movement there, of course, because it is just so long of a corner. What he has done, however, maybe, is set himself up with a good exit.
And he set himself up with the best lap of the race as Luciano Wittver with a 2:20.1 over the previous run around the Brno circuit. Philip Dries taking a defensive line, big slide coming into turn 3 from Christian Mikel. What you've got to think here, though, is NeedRacing.com will potentially work together with each other to stop the Luciano Wittver and Enzo Filipao taking the victory, so they can keep it in the NeedRacing.com house. What that means is that Luciano Wittver and Enzo Filipao, 2 ruthless rivals in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship, may have to find some way of working together to get themselves between the NeedRacing.com pairing and then potentially go after the race victory. There's not long left to go, but you know, everyone's a friend on the racetrack if they can assist you. If they can't, dead in the water.
Yeah, bin him off straight away. But Wittver and Filipao need to put egos and rivalries aside just for a second in order to combat the rivalry of the 2 NeedRacing.com cars in front. Wittver trying to go for the almighty send, darting it very late to the inside. Same too with Enzo Filipao, chucking the move to the inside of that very long right-hander. Wittver sees it coming, gives him a little bit of space, not too much. Filipao with a bit of contact eventually has to settle in behind the Flying Dutchman. And that is the last thing they want, Lewis, because if they begin to fight themselves and drop off the back of these 2, well, NeedRacing.com have got this one in the bag.
Well, the other NeedRacing.com driver by Turka Hakkinen, you can see him there in the background, was really attacking quite hard onto Mikiewicz. Once again, looks down the inside as we start the rise up into the penultimate chicane. A couple of different lines you can take in here. You really want, though, to hold it as far left as possible so you can get a good punch up the hill. We saw Mate Mikiewicz on his final lap in qualifying, where he was actually looking quite good until the final chicane, where he overdrove the inside portion of it. In this kind of race, you have to be brave and trust that the car behind is going to be on the same kind of line, pulls it back over to the left and then punch it through the right-hander. Because if you don't have that faith the car behind is going to do that, then you're expecting them to basically just drive over you going into the corner. You need to both have that sort of mindset of which racing line you're going to take here. It does mean that if you're bold, I think we will see a few moves on the last lap going into that final corner where people are intentionally overdriving the penultimate one and then just firing it down the inside Chase Elliott style, like what he did in Mosport a few years ago, and fire it down the inside of the final corner. That normally ends in a crash, as it did for Chase Elliott that day.
Yeah, well, these are MX-5, so we'll find out what goes on. And these guys usually give each other a bit of racing room. Defensive line for Luciano Wittver going into the left-hander. Covers off the offence from Enzo Filipao. He's held him off through turn 3, now through 4, and it's all about exit here once again. A little bit of a twitch, a correction on the steering from Enzo Filipao. Wittver not quite able to stay with the top 2 as it stands. Is that down to maybe the pressure from behind of Filipao potentially making Wittver look in his mirrors more than looking forwards?
Yeah, I think potentially. like I say, you've got to play your card tactically here. That there was a little bit of a look on a couple of occasions from the Frenchman that maybe just caught the attention of Luciano Vitfort, and it's just dragged his attention off the top. A brilliant side-by-side, by the way, between Oyster and Peter Daniel. Once again, Oyster still able to hang on from the Czech driver on home soil, who, as things stand, if I'm not mistaken, will be starting from the reverse group pole in the next race.
Will be indeed. Taka Hakkinen as well, falling down to 8th place on the back of Marius Sabdir and Matej Mikovic for P6. But yeah, that's the thing. Does Peter Daniel want P9 and settle for a front row, or is he just happy to consolidate 10th? I suppose with the pressure from Obratau in behind, he doesn't want to risk losing that reverse grid in of itself, so would rather have P9 as a nice buffer zone, because the difference between P10 and P11 in this race, Lewis, is going to be nothing. But when it comes to race 2, it's going to be the difference of 10 places. So you really want to keep that driver behind, but Obratau going to be desperate to get himself into contention.
Yeah, of course. Also, you've got to think about if you're starting. I'm pretty sure the even numbers are on the inside going into T1. So if you do get a decent start, then you'll be on it. I think Villa Cravey had a really poor start there from what I was seeing. He was on the inside on the left-hand side of camera, right-hand side as they run into T1. Actually had a really bad start. So if you can get a good start over someone who's having a pretty poor one, then yeah, you can make some progress. There is Matej Mikovic with Marius Zabdir now over the rear end after Zabdir's worked his way past the fin of Turka Hakkinen, who will now sit behind. Final lap of the race, though, there's a battle for third.
Here is Enzo Filipao, forced to concede to Luciano Vitfort because you're not really on the brakes for very long into turn number 1. It's a very long corner, just trying to maximise the minimum speed. All over the curb, though, Enzo Filipao trying to maximise his run and make turn 2 as much of a straight line as possible, because as soon as it becomes a corner, it becomes a problem on that short run in towards turn number 3. Also very close between the top 2, side by side between the fight for third, as Enzo Filipao goes to the outside into the chicane. It looks for now, though, that Vitfort's got it covered.
I think it might also be very close to 3 wide between Turka Hakkinen and Marius Zabdir and Matej Mikovic for 6th position. Of course, those are all grid positions as well for the next race, whilst in that sense it would be the lower down you finish, the better off you'll be. But who knows how they'll play their fight. Right now it's going to be a long evening of racing, a lot of racing, a very sweaty evening for a lot of our drivers on the grid, which is what makes it so exciting. I think where some things have been calm towards the front for this race, they certainly will not be in the next race once you get reverse grid action. You know, Christian Michael Philip Dry starting down there in the depths of the top 10. That should be absolutely fascinating as Daniel's still able to keep Obratau at bay.
Yes, indeed. And with just over about half a lap left to go, the fight for 6th continues to rage on as well. The pole of Marius Zabdir still trying to find an advance through on 6th place. Matej Mikovic doing a really good job, it must be said, of hanging on to that. Any progress between the front 4? Not at the moment, which tells me it's going to be fireworks potentially for this final sector.
Oh, certainly so. At least into the final corner. The penultimate chicane is all about setting up that final chicane. But let's keep our eye and see how Enzo Filipao runs through this penultimate one. See how far left he gets. So kind of early on the brakes. We'll hold it as far left as possible before punching it through the right. Actually turns to the right quite early, a bit earlier than I would have expected. Might be quite close. I wonder how hard they're going to send it into the final chicane.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see. We're moments away from it, and Christian Mikel has led this race pretty much solely from pole position. No offensive manoeuvres from his teammate Philip Drace, as he now only has one more opportunity through the final chicane. It's side by side in the fight for third. Enzo Filipao has gone for it. He's got the inside line going through the final corner. We'll see the race leaders across the line. Christian Mikel leads at NeedRacing.com 1-2 with his teammate Philip Drace in behind. He becomes the first double winner of the RaceRoom ranked MX-5 Cup Championship here at the Autodrom Brno in the Czech Republic. It's Luciano Vitfort that rounds off the podium, but only a couple of hundredths of a second behind is Enzo Filipao. Villa Cravey rounds off the top 5 with a huge train in behind, fighting for the midfield positions. And in the end, of course, it was the 2 Germans from NeedRacing.com, Mikel and Drace 1 and 2, Vitfort at the podium, Filipao, Cravey the top 5, Mikovic able to hang on to the 6th place, Marius Zabdir eventually able to get himself into 7th, but not quite able to top the Hungarian. Then comes Turka Hakkinen, Shores Oyster, and Peter Daniel getting himself that reverse grid pole position.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, good stuff from actually a lot calmer of a race than I would have expected there. But Philip Dryce doing the work, finishing just a couple of tenths. Philip Dryce, Christian Mikel doing the work, finishing just a couple of tenths ahead of his teammate. Tight, not too much between them, not too much action between that top group. That will definitely change in the second.
Yeah, because we've now got the the quote unquote the faster guys, the Mikkels, the Dreys, the Vitfort, Philippau, fighting their way back through, because at the end of the day, it is going to be consistency that reigns supreme in the overall championship, and you want to score as highly as you possibly can across all 3 races, because that's then when the championship points are dished out, and you want to make sure you get as many of them as possible. Speaking of championship points, as it stands, of course, as we say, Luciano Vitfort leads Bence Farkas, who is about 16 points back, but then comes Philip Dreys on 82. So I think all eyes really are going to be on Dreys trying to close that gap to the Dutchman.
Yeah, certainly. So I mean, you've got to remember with Luciano Vitfort, I've said before about like this year, it kind of seems like we're seeing a very different Luciano Vitfort than we normally see. He's just been ultra consistent. Look at this championship, for example. We're 7 races in. He's the championship leader fairly comfortably, has won both of the previous rounds, and has only won 1 race. That's mostly down to his consistency. He's just been ticking off races, putting himself into decent positions, into the podiums, into those top 5, etc., etc. Not taking any serious risk, just playing good cards.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you need, which Vitfort, I think, has definitely made a name for himself, at least in my eyes, of being quite an aggressive, do or die sort of driver. But particularly in this championship, he's really settled down, gone for those high percentage chance moves, and has led himself to a win, 4 podiums, 5 top 5s, has now added an extra tally onto that, into the podiums and top 5s, all in the span of the 7 races that we've got. He's not won every single race, he's not quite been on the podium in every single race, but what he has done, Lewis, is on most of the occasions been in the top 5, and that is so vital. That consistency is what is going to hopefully for him see him come out on top in the championship.
Well, if you think about it as like a race-by-race basis when it comes down to, or a round-by-round basis when it comes down to that, they're basically mini championships, right? If you, as you were explaining earlier, Zach, this is effectively the Brno round. If you think of it as a little championship, it's a 3-race championship. You win this championship, i.e. by, let's say you finish 1st, 2nd and 3rd throughout the races, and you're the highest, technically the highest average finish, the highest point scorer from this round. You then get the round victory, and that's where you get your 50 points from in the championships. Why we can have, like, Bence Farkas was actually a round winner as well as Luciano Vitfort. In the previous round, they both scored 50 points from it, which is kind of cool. If in this sense, if you're just getting inside like the top 3 each round, then yeah, you're picking off big victories when it comes to the championship. By the way, we are getting ready for the 2nd race. We've just entered the race session now, so they should be gridding up in a couple of moments' time, and then we should be seeing quite a tight fight for the race victory.
Fingers crossed. We'll wait and see, of course, that final preparation. How do you deal with that final prep, Lewis? Because being sat on the grid after the surge of adrenaline over race 1, do you calm yourself down, or do you ride on the wave of adrenaline?
No, there's not enough time to calm yourself down. Most of the ones that I've done, you actually have like, what is supposed to be 5 minutes, ends up being normally 20 to 30 between the 1st and the 2nd race. You in that, you've got time to cool yourself down, have a little breather. In this, you don't. You've done one race, right? The countdown's on. You're straight back into another one, and you've just got to fire yourself up. That's why I'm saying you've got to take it 1 lap at a time.
Just got to deal with it. Well, the cars get themselves ready on the grid. We're about to get ourselves set for race number 2 here in the Czech Republic. It's Petr Danielshaw's Oyster the front row, Taka Hakkinen and Mariusz Zabdir in behind. We are underway for the 2nd race of the evening. 15 minutes put back onto the clock, and it's a run once again in towards turn number 1. Taka Hakkinen for NeedRacing.com pulls alongside the Flying Dutchman of Shaw's Oyster. A comfortable start though from the man on home soil of Petr Daniel, side by side between P2 and P3. The Flying Finn tries to go the long way round, more battling. We're nearly 2 wide, multiple rows deep in the fight for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, etc. They all settle themselves back in a single file though, and a clean start for the Czech.
Yeah, no movement from Cravey, Philip Howell, Luciano Vitfort, Philip Drysdale, Christian Mikkel, all holding position. It's Turka Hakkinen that might try and make some progress. This is where it all starts switching up down into T3. Big dive down the inside. Matej Mikiewicz and Mariusz Zabdir now going side by side. Mikiewicz with the yellow highlights on his car. Zabdir with the orange highlights, the green highlights there. Evento Philip Howell, who is starting to make some serious progress now up to 5th position after starting this one from 7th.
Yeah, able to pick his way through the pack, which is going to be ever so vital in these reverse grid races. Sends the move to the inside of Matej Mikiewicz, that we saw over race 1. He's very keen with his defensive driving. Luciano Vitfort in the grey and orange MX-5 as well, picking his way through the pack, only 1 place behind, but a poor run through, and a lot of pressure, it must be said, from the NeedRacing.com cars of Philip Dreys and Christian Mikkel. Side by side goes Vitfort. He sees the gap on Philip Howell and is not going to let the Frenchman in front.
Yeah, I think it was also, you've got to think Christian Mikel has issues from Sebastian Ray behind. There is the outside move being taken. Turka Hakkinen under pressure. Mari Sabdir going for the up and under. We head on the back stretch down towards the hairpin. The top two are a bit of a breakaway at the moment. Peter Daniel and Oyster pulling their way ahead of the field. Now, those two were battling quite a lot in the previous race. They continue it now. That's Luciano Vitford sending it down the inside, coming into the hairpin. No switch between the pair of them. It's all eyes ahead where those changes are as Mari Sabdir picks up another one.
They've got to be very careful though, because the last thing they want is Petter Daniel and Shaw's Oyster getting away. With how competitive this grid is, anyone can win and anyone pretty much is on the pace. So if that gap gets too big, it's going to be almost impossible to close down. They've only got 12, just under 13 minutes of this race left to go. That's not an infinite amount of time. So they need to settle this fight quick and focus on getting themselves after the top two in front. Right now, Daniel and Oyster know the job at hand, side by side in the background as Vitford and Drees go side by side. This is for 6th place. They all want their first pickings at Mikovic, who at the moment is fairly calm in his 5th place because the people behind the quote-unquote faster guys are too busy settling who wants to lead the charge in front.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, Philip Dries is working his way through the field better than Christian Mikel is, because Christian's only in 11th position, actually dropped back a single one behind Sebastian Ray. There's Turka Hakkinen straight back down the inside of Mari Sabdir. Now 1.5 seconds Daniel and Oyster are over the entire contingent behind. It's looking great for those two, because this grouping, they're just fighting too hard, to be honest, at the moment. We're on board with the championship leader now in 6th place, and he's going to try and pick up 5th from Mikovic coming down to T3.
Yeah, it's the outside line, of course, for the left-hander. The first part of this chicane, he's got to use the agility of the MX-5 to keep himself alongside and hope that Mikovic doesn't understeer. It's a long way round. He has got the inside line going through the next right-hander at turn 4, and now he's got to put his foot down and hope that he's got the run in towards turn number 5. Philip Drees trying to capitalise on it as well and find his way alongside the very vulnerable Mikovic, the Hungarian, on offline, sent through, but very late on the brakes and able to keep Drees behind. This is Vitford's chance now to build a gap to his rivals.
Yeah, kind of. This is where it's very sketchy in this bit back. It's kind of looking terrifying, to be perfectly honest. A side by side a bit further down, but actually most people are just going side by side without actually switching too many positions. That's Polgar out wide though. I think it is, who's kind of going to rejoin. Might lose out another couple of positions here.
He might do, and it's easily done because of the momentum-based precedence of this circuit. Very easy to lose, and of course, with the massive train of cars behind you, you just get freight trained as they all bully their way past. Weaving his way though is Turka Hakkinen, trying to keep Marius Sabdir at bay. Luciano Vitford trying to capitalise on it as well. Very late on the brake is Mikovic, and I think that's his defensive strategy. Brake as late as he can get away with and just hope that it's later than the person that's trying to overtake him.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's a tough track to actually defend at, really, because you've got to kind of, like I say, you've got to have a lot of trust in that car behind, and sometimes you really don't. But if you don't have that trust in the car behind, it actually makes it easy to overtake. It's very, it's baffling in that sense. Mari Sabdir, we're looking backwards from now. He's still quite close to the rear of Turka Hakkinen, but Sabdir's got to deal with Luciano Vitford. I think he's going to be wise enough here not to attack too hard. Vitford coming off of a podium in the previous race, I think will just play his cards a little more patient here. Obviously, you know, Vitford is going to want Sabdir to catch Hakkinen, but they're both going to want Hakkinen to try and catch Oyster and Daniel, who lead the field at the moment. The fastest lap, though, obviously in favour of the Dutchman in second.
Yep, and well, they're just bridging that gap as much as they possibly can. Look at that side by side as Luciano Vitford tries to find his way past the pole of Marius Sabdir. They continue to go side by side. It's the long way round for the championship leader as Mikovic also trying to capitalise on it. The up and under from Luciano Vitford once again sees him alongside his long-time rival across all sorts of discipline here on RaceRoom Esports. Luciano Vitford finds himself on the left-hand side of your screen, the right-hand side of the circuit. It's the outside line. Enzo Filipao trying to get involved with the NeedRacing.com cars as well. It's absolute carnage in the opening stages of this race, and they continue to fight it out. Luciano Vitford not quite able to top Marius Sabdir.
Yeah, and Sebastian Ray's very solid start in this race. He's sort of dropped off and come a little bit to a close. Finds himself now behind Villacravian outside of the top 10. Looking backwards once again from Luciano Vitford. Matej Mikievic back onto the scene after Vitford's attempts to get past the pole come to an end. Mikievic now trying to find his way back into it. There was almost three wide between Enzo Filipao, Philip Dries and Christian Mikel, who finds himself back in on the fight. The gap for the race lead, by the way, or the top two versus everyone behind, is 1.5 seconds. There's someone backwards. That's Geisler backwards in the background, and I think even quite heavily into the barrier.
Yeah, I think so as well. He's tumbled his way all the way to the back end of the field, continuing to go side by side, though. Zabdir trying to launch the counter-attack, and that is a shame because Geisler didn't quite have the best of qualifyings, but over the course of race 1 in the opening stages of race 2 was, firmly inside that mid-pack. So all that progress is now meant niche. Side by side, Filipao and Drace as well, just behind Mikovic, who's himself is trying to get a lot of slip angle, try and get the later apex on that run uphill in towards the chicane to capitalise on the fighting between Vitford and Zabdir, who darts his way to the inside, unsettles the car, nearly loses it, and now Mikovic wants a slice of the pie as well.
Yeah, so Filipao getting himself back past Philip Dreiss after the switch had just recently happened. You've got to have excellent spatial awareness to take part in this kind of fight. And that's Villa Cravey pulling over to the right-hand side in that dark blue MX-5 on the run up the hill, trying to make his way past Christian Mikel, trying to make his way past Philip Dreiss as well. In his slipstream is Sebastian Ray. But backing out of it is Sebastian Ray. Jose Luis Gamero also involved in the fight side by side between Christian Mikel and Villa Cravey, takes them through the final corner, and this could mean some three-wide action down towards T1. Oh, it was a little bit. That's Sebastian Ray trying to slot the gap.
Yeah, trying to thread the needle through the middle. A little bit of contact. Oh my goodness me, Cravey, I think being a little bit wise there. They settle into two wide. Still a little bit of contact as Ray tries to take the track away from Louis Gamero. He's able to take the apex, and they all settle once again into single file. So I don't think they're quite that silly at the moment, Lewis. Wait maybe until the final lap, and we could see some four-wide action.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a choo-choo getting freight trained right there and then. Just a touch from Villa Cravey, dropping back outside of the top 10 with now 12th position on the road. Devin Nemchek's not too far behind as well if he wants to rejoin into this fight. Once again, Mikovic and Mariusz Zabdir continue their fight. A look at Enzo Filipao, who's just staring at him being like, okay, well, we're not going to be winning this race, are we? Let's just try and get what we can get. Oh, that was a little bit naughty.
A little bit argy-barty between the two of them. Drace slips his way to the inside. Enzo Filipao trying to keep him honest. Oh, sideways! And Christian Mikel and Philip Drace have lost the car. He's managed to collect it and point it in the right way. Mariusz Zabdir involved in that as well, and that was a very sketchy moment for the pole.
Yeah, that was pretty sketchy. Unfortunately for Christian Mikel as well, kind of just wrong place, wrong time. Villa Cravey though, Villa Cravey's had an issue. He's dropping down the order with Mariusz Zabdir as well. Oh goodness, so it's not finished kicking off, that's for sure, as it starts to all fight up for the race lead. Turka Hakkinen continues to close in. The gap's now down to 0.7 of a second because Daniel's looking down the inside of Oyster, who's now, well, I say retaken the race lead, has now taken the race lead with what will be 3 laps left to go.
Yeah, really kicking his race into overdrive. He sat patiently for quite some time, but after the charge from Turka Hakkinen to get himself back into slipstream range, Jules Oyster didn't want to take any chances whatsoever and get that car between himself and Turka Hakkinen, which is now Petter Daniel. However, not the best of runs out of the final corner. Could we see Petter Daniel launch a counter-attack into turn number 1? We'll wait and see, but the fight continues further back as well, because this is absolute insanity, absolute carnage in this fight behind Mikovic, who's still able to hang on to 4th. I have to say, Vitford's going to be loving the fact that Mikovic is putting up such a good defensive manoeuvre. He was the one to benefit from it. Filipao, Drace and Ray, not quite as lucky.
Yeah, no, certainly not. Like I say, just wrong. Again, that's the whole thing with this kind of stuff when you're in pack racing and stuff. Wrong place, wrong time is very much a thing. If you've ever watched NASCAR or just general oval racing, in that kind of aim where slipstream is king, there is just wrong place, wrong time. It's no one's fault. It's just where you are. Enzo Filipao continues his attempts on Mate Mikiovic. This is a bit further down with Sebastian Ray, Jose Luis Gamero, who finds himself inside the top 10 with 9th. And of course, the race winner in the previous race, Christian Mikel, once again closing back in on this. That was Jose Luis Gamero not going for the slipstream as they go from the right-hand side of the shot all the way over to the left in very aggressive fashion, trying to set themselves up for T3 and 4.
Fortunately for Christian Mikel, he's got himself back into that ever-crucial P10 and now make it even P9 as well. Nemchek and Bartolos fighting over P11. Here is that fight. Mikel and Louis Gamero in the white and orange. He finds himself alongside the race 1 winner, who's looking to get himself up an extra place and score a couple more points. There you can see in the background as well, Bartolos, Nemchek and Kontinetsky just in behind also in that fight for P11. Continuing to go side by side. Look at this, Christian Mikel not quite on the pace really for race 2, not quite able to carve his way through the pack as efficiently, now finds himself locked in a fight with the Spaniard, doing his best in order to hang on to that reverse grid pole position, because if they continue to fight, Bartolos is going to eat this up and love the fact that he's got a chance for 10th.
That was a little aggressive there from Christian Micari. He almost went full Zarco-esque on the previous turn, but then diving it down the inside of Jose Luis Gamero, that was never really going to work. Back up to the race lead, though, and it is now 3 for the race lead. I was going to say a lap or two ago that this was locked into being a 2-horse fight between Oysa and Daniel. Obviously not. The moment they start fighting, you just lose time hand over fist. And to be perfectly honest, Luciano Vitford, despite being 1.7 seconds arrears of this group, do not count him out from doing something when it comes to closing down this lot. Fast after the race goes to Turka Hakkinen, but let's see what it is as we come over the crest to start the penultimate lap of the race, because I get the feeling it might well switch to the Dutchman.
Yeah, I think Vitford is, he's got that motivation, and as soon as Vitford's got his mind set on something, he's not going to let himself get disappointed. He's going to push as much as he possibly can in order to get that goal, and and once again add another podium to his tally. He can see it right there. He can see 3 cars fighting for the lead, and he loves this, because that 1.7, 1.8 gap could very well potentially close very, very quickly. Shores also finds himself alongside Petter Daniel at the man on home soil, of course, trying to take that victory, and they do swap for the lead side by side a little bit further back, though. Philip Drees versus Matej Mikovic. Sebastian Ray darts to the inside also through turn number 1, and that long run for Mikovic sees him lose the place to Drees and Ray. I guess that's the gamble that Mikovic has to play. The longer he defends, sure, he keeps that track position, but he also brings more people into the fight, and therefore potentially more people to lose positions to.
Yeah, exactly. This is where, like, you kind of have to set this up. Like, if, say, for example, in this scenario, right, if you're Turka Hakkinen, Daniel and Oysa, if you work together and you don't fight, right, the worst you're probably going to finish is there's a bit of a spin in the background. Jose Luis Gamero going for a spin. Big shame for him, but unfortunately the Spaniard is sent round. He'll rejoin, drop down the order, potentially outside of the top 20. Certainly is so he's going to have a ball grid position for the next one. As I was saying, between the top 3, if you don't fight, realistically the worst you're probably going to finish is 3rd, maybe 4th, depending on if Luciano Vitford joins the fight. If you do fight hard, then the worst you're going to finish is actually much worse, because you'll bring in Vitford, you'll bring in Filipao, you bring in Dries, and you'll increase the risk of something dramatic happening to you. It depends on what kind of game you want to play.
I guess they've got to weigh up the risk and reward. I suppose for Petter Daniel to take this victory would mean a lot to him. I mean, for all 3 of them to take that first win of the season would mean quite a lot to them. So they are going to fight it out as much as they can. They're racing drivers. They're not going to settle for 2nd or 3rd. If a win's on the cards, they are definitely going to try and push as hard as they can in order to do it. On to the final stages of the penultimate lap, and then we will start the final one, about 2 minutes 20 in length. And, well, Luciano Vitford is still chipping away at this gap. He's going to be wishing for an extra lap, but unfortunately that's not a luxury he's going to get. The only luxury that he is hoping for is these 3 to continue fighting and hope that there's a couple of squabbles for the race lead he can get himself involved in.
Yeah, these will obviously, by the way, be the longest races of the season. Probably, second longest race of the season, let's be honest, because in 3 weeks' time we'll be racing at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which we know will be fairly long. Those will be just a couple of laps around the mighty green hell, but keeping our eyes focused on this. Oysa taking a slightly defensive line, going midway over the circuit, just about halfway over before returning back over to the right-hand side of the shot, left-hand side of the circuit, heading into the first corner, all over the rear end. Peter Daniel is, of course, taking the outside to inside line, the fin of Turka Hakkinen. Should give him a decent run down towards T3.
Should indeed, but you've got to put your foot down. You've got to make turn 2 as straight line as possible. Losing a little bit of time, Turka Hakkinen off to the back of the top 2. Also this fight amongst the midfield, Philip Drees, Sebastian Ray fighting it out, as Sebastian Ray under a little bit of pressure as well from the Hungarian of Mikovic. Not long left to go in race 2 at all, and Shores also looking very, very confident indeed. Luciano Vitford not really able to close in this gap so much, which means if he does close, it's going to be right at the end of the lap, which I suppose might not actually be a bad thing, Lewis. It means he's not at a risk of stalling behind the top 3.
Yeah, but still, I think Luciano Vitford's chances of winning the race have gone. I don't think he will be able to, unless he gets a little bit fortuitous with how this lot battle and whether he gets given the right opportunity. I think Turka Hakkinen is probably a little bit out of it. It's going to take a bit of a dive from Peter Daniel. I actually think from this point on, I think Oysa, as long as he doesn't make a mistake going down to that hairpin, I think he's got this one sorted. He's not made a mistake in the previous 15 minutes. I don't see why he would now.
Yeah, well, the pressure has exaggerated. It's almost exponentially increased, but he's done a brilliant job of coping with it up until this point, and he's only got about half a lap left to go in order to seal the victory for himself after starting on the front row, was able to capitalise. And I think Jules Oyster has played this race to perfection. Taka Hakkinen with a bit of a send, nearly into the rear end of Peter Daniel. I think, in fact, there was a little bit of contact.
Yeah, there was. It was overdriven by the Finn. That was a bit naughty. It was obviously just trying too hard to try and get involved with the race victory. Almost cleaned out Daniel, but thankfully the contact model was quite nice to him there, and the Czech driver was able to keep it on the road, but he's still one position shy of taking a victory on home soil. One more chicane left to go, though. I think Daniel might give something a go here on Oyster.
Well, he's got to. It's do or die. It's now or never. Look into the inside Taka Hakkinen. If there's no movement now, there's going to be no movement ever. Jules Oyster, he's taken a podium so far this season, but never taken to the top step. He's got one more corner left to go. Put his foot down, and he'll see the checkered flag first, unless Peter Daniel has got a rocket ship in the back end of that MX-5. It is going to be Jules Oyster. It is going to be the Dutchman to take victory for race 2. Peter Daniel, Taka Hakkinen join him on the podium. Luciano Vitfort and Enzo Filipao, a very consistent and mature drive to 4th and 5th, with in fact the Frenchman taking the fast lap of the race in the end. Behind that, Philip Drey, Sebastian Ray at 6th and 7th, eventually able to get themselves ahead of the Hungarian. The mighty defence of Mikovic sees him, in fact, actually making some moves forward up 3 places into 8th. Christian Mikel, P9, not the best race that he would have wanted, but still able to start from the front row. Bartalos takes that reverse grid pole position for the final race in race 3.
I mean, to be fair for Christian Mikel, if you're looking to tick off a round victory, things are looking pretty decent for you starting on the reverse grid.
Indeed so. Well, myself, Zach Sweeney, Lewis McGlade, we're going to step away for just a moment. We've got a word from our sponsor before we're back for 15 minutes of race 3. Moments away then from getting our final race of the MX-5 Cup, round 3 of the Ranked Championship 2023 Season 1 here on RaceRoom underway. We've had an absolute barnstorming race 1 and 2 that have seen 2 very deserved race victors. Race 3 just moments away. Myself, Zach Sweeney, Lewis McGlade alongside me here in the commentary booth. And Lewis, before the break, you touched on a very interesting point there of Christian Mikel. Race victory, P9, a good result, and now he gets the benefit of a very good reverse grid pole position. He's in for some good points all if he can keep it clean.
Well, that's the insight you get when you bring the big boys onto the broadcast. If you win, things will look good for you in the championship.
True. You know, I never thought of that.
No, it's weird, isn't it? It's very odd. But obviously, no, playing a consistent game at the moment is Christian Mikel, and he knows how to win championships and stuff, whether it's endurance, sprint, whatnot. He's got a good head on his shoulders. And at the moment, looking pretty strong for this round at least. Like you say, at the front in the first race, I think Understood didn't need to make too much progress in the second one. I think did the important bit by recovering after that Mariusz Zabdir incident.
Yeah, that was the important bit, which is to not dwell on it too much. Just pick yourself back up and press forward. And press forward, he did exactly that. A bit of a fight with Luis Gamero at some point, and then obviously the Spaniard had his spin. Christian Mikel was free, essentially, to cement his place inside of the top 10. A front row start alongside Julius Bartalos going into race 3. With some of his main rivals, Luciano Vitfort, Filipao will be starting towards the mid-pack of the top 10. All Mikel really needs is to take the lead early on and hopefully run away with it while the carnage ensues behind, because if it's anything like race 2, if you're in that top pack, you can, use those few minutes to at very least give yourself some breathing room.
Well, to win, you need to cross the line first, and obviously that will be the main intention for Christian Mikel right now. Just getting the race started cleanly, not taking too much risk going down to the first corner. I think he's got this. I think he will win this race.
I would also bet on that as well. He needs, of course, that depends if it goes
Genius.
cleanly. Oh yeah, I know, right? Just agree with what Lewis says, and you're probably going to be all right.
It's not
Um,
even that. It's let's just pick the driver that's already won today. That's kind of among
kind of
drivers that are
decent.
slightly slower and is in a good position. Yep,
Yeah,
genius.
genius. I
The
mean,
safe bet.
Sherlock Holmes, basically, we are, mate. We're awesome. But it does depend on the fact that he gets a clean start, because obviously, is it the even numbers that start on the insides?
Yes, I
Yeah,
believe
so
so.
a poorer start potentially, and we haven't seen anyone take the lead into turn one yet. So McCall needs a really good start in order to, take control of this race early on.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, we'll see how he plays his cards running through that kind of section. Well, the start of the race is the most dangerous part, particularly coming down to turn 3, and I'm pretty sure Christian McCall is well aware of that.
Yes, and they're back on to the grids. They are ready and raring to go for 15 more minutes. The final race of round 3. The 5 relays will come on. It's Julius Barcelos, Christian McCall on the front row. We are go, and a pretty tentative start, it must be said, but there we go. Matej Mikovic getting a really good start from 4th place on the grid, moves his way immediately up to 3rd ahead of Sebastian Ray, who's dropped down to 5th, and Rose once again with a really poor start. The Dane tumbling his way down the order, of course. Mikovic going the long way round to turn number 1, and you can see Philip Drees immediately trying to get himself into the action. Barcelos able to lead from turn number 1, and Christian McCall already eager to get himself alongside.
Yeah, like I say, Christian McCall's trying to take the lead early and try and run away. Barcelos, though, defending quite well. Mikovic with Sebastian Ray, Philip Drees in the background, trying to work his way up and assist his teammate with some potential. Again, NeedRacing.com wanted to get back toward the front. There's a big move behind all of that from Luciano Vitfort trying to get us down the inside. Enzo Filipao, I believe it was.
Yeah, indeed so. He's managed to get himself into 7th, but no further movements. Filipao able to stay ahead of his rival for now. Christian McCall into the race lead, and here we go. Vitvit trying to search for a way past Enzo Filipao, who's managed to retain that 6th place for now in the black and green MX-5, the grey and orange tinted MX-5 of the championship leader Luciano Vitvit, trying to go the long way round, as he's done multiple times so far this evening. Barcelos fighting tooth and nail to hang on to 2nd. Mikovic putting on some good pressure, but that's the thing, when you're locked into a fight, it's very easy to fluctuate, because you get a bad exit one corner and people behind are going to sniff that up and say thank you very much and find their way past, and that is the plan for Sebastian Ray at the moment.
Yeah, certainly so. Like I say, just working his way up the order at the moment as we look at Barcelos. A little bit of a look there ahead of all of that. That's Sebastian Ray trying to work his way past Barcelos, like kind of getting quite aggressive on the run down the hill, and that's actually opened up the door for Philip Drees to look down the inside. There's contact, no ahead. That's Sebastian Ray going for a slide. He manages to catch the car, but has opened the door for Philip Drees to come through.
Has indeed. Luciano Vitvit wants to get through as soon as he can as well, to not let Philip Drees get away. And around the outside, Ray's managed to hold the inside firm, but he's then got to very quickly switch back to the disadvantage line. Luciano Vitvit straight to the inside through that right-handed run, and now slightly uphill in towards the next braking zone. Luciano Vitvit trying to search for a way past, but you're not really on the brakes for very long. Now into the final chicane, he has a bit of a look, but in behind it's Enzo Filipao sending the move on Ray's to 2nd place Petter Daniel, who once again launches the fight back to the next right-hander. It's absolute chaos in the opening moments of race 3.
No, I'm surprised we haven't seen more moves like that from not just from Peter Daniel, but like from anyone on the grid going through the final corner. This is generally why you don't see it through the middle of the race, because it brings everyone else involved in it. That's why they're 3 wide across the line. Turka Hakkinen going through the middle, picking up 1, picking up 2 positions. Also past Enzo Filipao, also past Peter Daniel, who now gets onto the rear end of the Frenchman, who was trying to get down the inside of the Finn.
Oh my word, it's everyone trying to overtake everyone trying to defend from everyone as well. You've got Petter Daniel under a bit of pressure from Davin Nemček in that fight for P9 and P10. Taka Hakkinen holding firm on 7th place. Filipao under a little bit of pressure from Petter Daniel, who's definitely got some good pace. Inside line, of course, Hakkinen giving the slipstream the way of the Czech driver. Filipao able to use the outside line to keep the momentum up, keep the minimum speed up. So close to contact on the back of the Finn. He's got a bit of a slide though, and that's going to hurt him on the run towards 5.
Yeah, certainly so. As they'll run down the hill once again, there's going to be plenty of side-by-side in this race. That's what I'm feeling. You know, the final race, if you retire from this one, who cares? You've just got to push, you've got to try and send it, you've got to try and go for it, and that's why we're going to see the gaps closer than we've really ever seen across the evening. Daniel to the outside of Enzo Filipao, who's got a lot of pressure, a little bit of contact, I think, there between Nemček and Daniel as they run through this central section.
Yeah, this is where you sort of have to run single file. We've seen a couple of cents, but nothing too major. It is just about keeping as close to your rival as you possibly can, and not making a massive mistake, as we have seen seen on a couple of occasions. Christian Mikel leading the way out in front, able to build nearly a second gap back to Mikovic, and Barcelos makes it a Hungarian 2-3. Mikel at the moment, I think, doing the perfect job possible. He's going to be hoping that Mikovic does his usual very valiant defence for second.
It's really crazy, this balance. Well, again, I'm loving this. It's absolute madness. But the only issue, Christian Mikel's checked out from the front. This is the real proof, by the way, for anyone who, if you believe in the commentator's curse, well, we both back this man wholeheartedly, and I think rightfully so, to be honest.
Which is that good, and it's not the commentator's curse, it's the commentator's coincidence, because as you so eloquently put it, Lewis, no such thing, it's only bad luck or bad driving.
And it's true, there is no such thing. And I mean, I was talking to this with a lot of drivers last at the weekend just gone, but because they're all convinced that the commentator's curse exists, and I said, don't blame me for your bad driving.
Boom.
And they didn't seem particularly pleased that I said such a thing. But at the same time, I stand by it. So tough.
Yeah, you're an award-winning commentator. They can shove it basically. Two-time, even better. Side by side. Really crazy going around the outside. Yeah, Lewis McGlade, biggest ego in sim racing, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. I try really, really hard. As once again, a couple of little looks in the background. That was contact there between, I think that was Philip Dreiss coming over the nose of Sebastian Ray a little bit, and that's allowed Dreiss to get to the outside of Bartalos. Kicks the rear end in though, going through T4 and the run down the hill. It's actually gone for the up and under. This might work out down towards turn 5, depending on what Sebastian Ray does. If he helps out with a little bit of bump draft, there's a move 100% on as Luciano Bitfoot just has to sit there and wait.
He has to, at least for now, sat idle, waiting for an opportunity, but the up and under, very, very prevalent in the race like this. Look at the overspeed that he's got, not quite able to use it into 6, but getting all over the rear end of Sebastian Ray, trying to go the long way round as Ray potentially gets boxed in, or maybe just trying to turn in really late and get that later apex. Are they going to be 3 wide on the exit? Sebastian Ray once again into the middle, through the next left-hander. Luciano Bitfoot going to chuck the move to the inside, all the way around the outside though goes Julius Bartalos. He's kept the move to the inside once again, but Sebastian Ray through the middle takes 4th place, but it's not over yet because once again the switch back from the Hungarian.
Yeah, stunning stuff. Absolutely fantastic battling in all of this. And here we go. 3 wide. Had to beat Luciano Bitfoot. Wants his piece in all of this. Coming down towards the hairpin. Got the inside line. Sent it in as hard as he can. Sebastian Ray straight around the outside. Could leave him vulnerable on the run up the hill if he doesn't get a decent exit. Luciano Bitfoot is alongside, but it is a slightly better exit for the German. He's got the inside line. He's sent it in. Bartalos back onto the scene. Contact between the two. Bartalos going for a bit of a slide. Manages to catch it as they climb up the hill once again.
Just about able to keep that car under wraps, but look at that run from Turka Hakkinen on the back of Julius Bartalos. He has to give the Finn some space. He's got the outside line going into the next chicane, ducking and diving, searching for the inside. Luciano Bitfoot late on the brakes, not quite late enough. Bartalos sends the move to the inside. Hakkinen trying to go the long way round, potentially gives him the inside of Bitfoot. He backs out of that move, but gets 6th place in the end. We round off another lap and approach the halfway mark of race number 3. And this fight amongst the midfield, Lewis, is absolute class.
Yeah, it's so good between this grouping. I am, like I say, loving what I am seeing right here. They are absolutely on each other all the way around the circuit. I mean, this is what I was expecting from the start of the evening, where they were going to be at each other's throats. It was a little bit calmer through the first and second race, but as we head through the halfway point of the third race, yeah, this is what we were expecting. Yes, I know Christian Mikel's checked out. It's Philip Dreiss once again in second position. It's a needracing.com 1-2, but everywhere behind, it's crazy town. Luciano Bitfoot under a lot of pressure. Sebastian Ray going one way, back the other, straight around the outside of T3. That is not going to work. It's going to lead to the inside at 4, but not alongside.
No, not quite, and he's just been able to... Oh, there's contact. Bartalos sends the move to the inside of Hakkinen, and the Finn has none of it. Bartalos sent sideways, backwards into the barrier, just about able to keep it out of contact, and the fight continues. The show must go on. Hakkinen looking for the move on Sebastian Ray. 2 wide, 2 deep, as Nemchek, Filipao, Oyster, and Daniel settle their squabble for 7th place as well. Filipao looking for the up and under, no way through for now. A race 2 winner as well, assures Oyster trying to get himself into the mix and pick his way through the pack as best he can, but it's been absolute carnage, bit of a swivel as well, just in front. Filipao. And that's the thing, is these cars have been, quite on the limit for the majority of this race, and a couple of people just about overstepping the mark.
I mean, I think it's quite easy to do. It's, when you're in a race that's so constant, it's so easy just to overstep, just to almost oversell yourself a little bit, and also overestimate your ability as well with overestimating everyone else's. and that's where you get a costly mistake. That's where it really bites. So it's no surprise to me to see a couple being bitten within this group, but you know the quality of it. They're still holding firm at the moment. Once again, still that NeedRacing.com 1-2 at Mate Mikiewicz right in tow of Philip Dryce ahead of all of this. Luciano Vitford not been able to break away from Sebastian Ray. Turger Hakkinen also onto the scene. We could see 3 NeedRacing.com drivers inside the top 5 when it comes down towards the checkered flag in 3 laps time.
Yeah, NeedRacing.com have had a really good day in the office, as you say, 1 and 2 in race 1, continuing that pace going into race 2, and then being straight back on it again for race 3, particularly with Christian Mikel starting towards the front end of the field. Turger Hakkinen really impressive on his MX-5 debut as well, nearly up there into the top 5. He's locked in this fight though with Vitford Ray and himself, of course, which he needs to get himself back onto the back on. He's been overdriving the car ever so slightly, pushing a bit too hard over the course of the last half a lap or so, and Vitford is defending quite hard from Sebastian Ray. So a prime opportunity for Hakkinen to make it 3 NeedRacing.com cars inside the top 5.
Yeah, certainly so. And we know the speed of the Finn. I remember when he used to race on a wooden chair in what looked incredibly uncomfortable circumstances. But you know, he's a quality driver, and regardless of whether he's racing in that or a proper sim rig like he is now, he does manage to show his ability on more than one occasion. Obviously, translating his abilities from R Factor 2, which is where Turger Hakkinen, Philip Dryce, and Christian Mikel will come from, over into the RaceRoom scene, and translating it quite well, might we add. So hopefully we can see those in some of the other esports competitions as well as the year goes on. I'm sure they're 3 names that we will see time and time again in RaceRoom. They're certainly enjoying themselves in the RaceRoom Rank Championship, as everyone should be as well. Obviously go and download, plug clock by the way. Now it's time to go and download the RaceRoom racing experience from Steam, and then maybe you can get yourself involved in the RaceRoom Rank Championship, because I mean, if you're not convinced by this race, then
well, will
go away.
Yeah, there's no marking team.
Actually, don't go away, keep watching.
Yeah, keep watching, because we're awesome. Myself and Lewis, we kind of know what we're doing, at least we pretend to. But yeah, the good thing about this championship is that anyone can compete. As long as your racing and reputation is high enough and you're on the pace, you can get yourself involved. It's not a very exclusive pack out in front. Yes, we've got many familiar names, but we've also got a couple of new people joining us as well. So if you can get out there, if you can improve your ranked racing, your ranked reputation by being quick, winning races, but also keeping it within the margins, and combined obviously the ratio between them, then see yourself potentially good enough to get yourself into the splits. But also the good thing about the Ranked Championship, Lewis, is it's not just one top split as well. You know, the whole community can get themselves involved, and also can get themselves a couple of bit of prize monies as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I say, so the whole thing with the RaceRoom Rank Championship is they are effectively like community events, same as you know, some of the ones that we've got on the horizon. The whole RaceRoom Rank Championship, normally at the 2.4 hour races that we do every now and then, they're all there to be a community race. That's what makes them so fun to be a part of. We get to see drivers that we wouldn't normally see battling towards the front of fields. By the way, I think we might see almost a battle for the race lead, because Philip Dryce has actually done a sterling job, not only breaking away from Mate Mikiewicz, but also to close down on his teammate Christian Mikel. So he might be in for a bit of a show coming down here. On the penultimate lap of the race, Mate Mikiewicz is under attack now from Luciano Vitford, who looks to try and get himself onto the podium once again. It's not going to be a round victory, I don't believe, for the Dutchman. He could well be saving himself a few points in the championship. Second in the championship, Ben Spargash is not here.
Yeah, that's true. Philip Drays was the one behind that, and to be fair, Philip Drays has scored some good points today, so might well score more than Vitford in the overall Brno round. But Vitford, once again, with a very sterling, consistent drive, hasn't won a race tonight at all, but he's been up there in the top 5 across race 1 and race 2, second in race 1, P4 I think in the end for race 2, and now once again fighting for the podium in race 3, and that is what wins championships. And Philip Drays, in all fairness to him, he's been equally as consistent, so it's going to be a very hard fought rivalry, I'm sure, into the final round at the Nürburgring Nordschleife in 3 weeks' time. Luciano Vitford, though, his eyes are firmly set on finding a way past Mikiewicz, who doesn't quite look to be on the pace of Vitford as it stands, but he's been probably one of the most standout drivers in making that MX-5 very, very wide.
Yeah, I mean, doing a stunning job at the moment. By the way, we did have an issue there from Gontier and Geisler. I think Rostance as well was involved in quite a tight battle between Bartelos and Esteban Titz as well in that battle for 20th. Unfortunately, Rostance has also dropped down the order, so a couple of issues for a few of our lower runners during this race. As I look back from Mate Mikiewicz, again, like you say, I'd be very much alongside you in the sense of saying that Mikiewicz is not the same quality of driver as Luciano Bitford, but at the same time is making this MX-5 as wide as possible. I think that might have been a costing mistake, going out a little bit too wide in the penultimate chicane.
Yeah, it's a slight uphill crest for the pit straight, which means that Luciano Bitford is going to eat this up and hope that he can get himself to the inside for the final chicane through the left, and it's the long way around for Mikiewicz, gives him the inside for the final right-hander on the circuit, and there goes Sebastian Rey as well. Luciano Bitford stuck between a rock and a hard place, looking forward to attack, looking backwards to defend, but now Sebastian Rey might have just about found himself past and up in the 4th place. Very opportunistic driving, it must be said, from the German, and exactly what he needed to maybe catapult himself into podium contention on the final lap.
Yeah, certainly so. I mean, Sebastian Rey's actually been looking pretty decent. Hasn't, kind of had to fight quite hard to get inside the top 10. Actually got a little bit fortunate courtesy of some of the issues later on in that second race with Mariusz Zabdir and the likes, which actually pushed Sebastian Rey inside the top 10. But we know Rey's a feisty fighter, and also has the speed, especially with the slipstream. Looking to the outside, coming down to T3, it's going to have to be a very hard set. It was a tight line being taken from Matej Mikiewicz, maybe potentially too aggressive on the defensive line being taken from the Hungarian. The inside line now being taken from Sebastian Rey. Come through, says Sebastian Rey, to make it 3 Germans on the podium, but Luciano Bitford wants to put an end to that.
He does indeed, and he wants to add to his podium tally. Looks to the outside as they run their way downhill in towards turn number 5, trying to get the up and under. It's a double right-hander complex into 6, so Bitford not quite able to find a way past for now. Sebastian Rey being very intelligent, a really slow run, caught Bitford out ever so slightly. Bit of contact between the two of them as they run their way through the infield section for the final time.
Yeah, Sebastian Rey was just trying to prepare himself for the next corner without opening the door. Luciano Bitford tried pouncing for it, but there was a car already there. Contact between the two. Thankfully, no real big dramas between the pairing of them, but it's tight between them. Sebastian Rey's only just about able to hang on to P3 right now. I'm not sure he will do up toward the line.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see because he's got 4 cars queued up behind him, of course. You don't really see likely that anyone other than Bitford or Mikiewicz is going to take this, but never, ever say never when it comes to motor racing. Into the hairpin for the final time. Also very close between Mikel and Drees, but very wide from Taka Hakkinen. Enzo Filipowski says thank you very much. Yeah,
costly mistake from Taka Hakkinen. Just drove it in a little bit too deep. Defensive lines being taken from Sebastian Rey. That could be costly. He's taking too much curve. That's a great save, though, from Sebastian Rey as they rise their way up the hill. Surely he's a sitting duck now. The Dutchman's surely going to find his way past.
Well, you'd think so. Sebastian Rey forced to go defensive. Also, the top 2 separated by only 7/10 of a sector. Second, it must be said, Luciano Bitford going to the upside into the final chicane for the final time at the halfway mark in the MX-5 RaceRoom MX-5 Cup. That comes to an end, of course. Round number 3, race number 3. Christian Mikel leads them across the line. Philip Drees takes it home to a NeedRacing.com 1-2. Luciano Bitford and Sebastian Rey, they're across the line, P3 and 4. It is going to go the way of the Dutchman. Sebastian Rey in 4th, Mikiewicz and Hakkinen 5 and 6 just in behind. Absolute carnage on that final lap, and Bitford just able to get himself ahead.
Yeah, that was actually an excellent move. Drove it in deep. That's exactly what I was saying, what I was expecting more of. Driving it in deep into the final corner to get himself to the inside.
Well, after 15 minutes of racing, race 3 comes to an end. Christian Mikel, Philip Drees, Luciano Bitford on the podium for the second time this evening. Mikel and Drees, once again, NeedRacing.com 1 and 2. Sebastian Rey, Mikiewicz, the top 5. Once again, consistent drives from the pair of them. Taka Hakkinen, not quite able to make it 3 NeedRacing.com cars inside the top 5, but still 6th place is respectable. Enzo Filipowski, Obratal, Cravey and Zabdir, once again inside the top 10. So once again, very impressive results. We'll let the rest of them cycle through. A big standout name in that list, though, is Shaw's Oyster down in P20, Lewis.
Yeah, a big shame for the race 2 winner, but obviously starting from 10th position, probably got caught out a little bit coming through the with the mid-pack coming through. I mean, it was dramatic in that mid-pack, so yeah, we saw a little bit of argy-bargy, shall we say, and unfortunately Oyster being one of those that kind of paid the price from all of that. Obviously, a few more back here that we kind of would have expected to be a little bit higher up. Piatkowski, but there's also Bartolos, who's back down this area of the field. Just drivers that we were expecting a little bit more from, just got a little bit out of place.
Yeah, unfortunately so. Well, in 3 weeks' time, Lewis, we go to the Nürburgring Nordschleife for the finale of the MX-5 Cup on the RaceRoom rack for season number 1. What are we expecting, do you reckon? Is it going to be quite what we've seen here in Brno?
Yeah, I mean, it's a slipstream fest, is the Nordschleife, of course. The Green Hell, fantastic race circuit, second best on the planet. Obviously, Bathurst, number 1, represent. But no, realistically speaking, no, the Nordschleife is a different ball game. You need to get a decent qualifying. I'm not saying pole position, but you need to be in that top 5, because if you're in those behind, you actually get caught up a little bit behind some of those that just really aren't in the flow with such a difficult circuit.
Indeed so. Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring an end to our coverage for the RaceRoom Ranked MX-5 Cup. Round 3 took back to the Czech Republic for the first season in 2023. In 3 weeks' time, as we say, we go to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, but that does not mean our time back in the Czech Republic comes to an end. In a week's time, the KTM GTX Championship takes to their round 3, and a week after that, the GT3 Pro Series as well starts the second half of their season. It's been myself, Zach Sweeney, Lewis McGlade alongside me in the commentary booth. We thank everyone for tuning along at home. Make sure you are like, subscribed, and turn the bell on for notifications as well, because you are not going to want to miss a thing that comes out of the RaceRoom Ranked Esports over the course of the next couple of weeks. Once again, it's a big thank you. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Do you also feel the same as this car enthusiast? He's reached his vehicle dream, but suddenly the original black wheels seem a bit boring. A colourful detail would add a lot more pep, and a little eye-catcher to match the paint would make the car perfect. Customization options don't only transform the wheel to visually match the vehicle, but also provides one-of-a-kind look on the road. The wheel color, rim protectors, center caps, valve caps, and even the wheel bolts can be configured and designed individually using style components of the new BBS Unlimited wheel system. And here's how it works. The BBS Unlimited base wheels are available in a total of 8 different colors. Whether it be a glossy, satin or polished finish, or from a deep indigo blue to racing gold to a rich bronze. Rim protectors are a colorful detail to visually enhance the wheel, while preventing damage from curb contact. In addition, the rim protectors can easily and quickly be replaced and renewed at any time. In total, 6 different designs are available. The center cap completes the wheel. So how cool would it be if it could also be customized? BBS Unlimited Style makes this possible. It's available in 56mm and 70.6mm diameters and can be applied in a variety of ways with the BBS logo. The center cap is available in 2D or 3D embossing, as well as in several color variations. And with the 3D rotation cover, the BBS logo remains visible to everyone, even when the car is in high gear. The valve caps complement the wheel in 6 different colors. This gives the individual wheel an even more coherent look. You can even choose the wheel bolt in the last step to match the wheel. Available in black, silver, and even titanium. With the help of the BBS Unlimited style components, you're able to create a work of art out of a conventional wheel, according to your own wishes and ideas. Just take a look at our configurator, and after a few clicks you can already start designing the perfect wheel for your vehicle. Do you have any questions about customization? Then contact the wheel expert now.